Hello, everyone. My name is Juliet Redendo, and today I will be presenting my Understanding Diversity project on deaf and hard of hearing inclusion. For this presentation, I wanted to focus on accessibility, communication, and inclusion for deaf and hard of hearing individuals in education and society. This topic is really important to me because of my experience learning ASL and working with children in educational settings. Throughout this presentation, I will be discussing how accessibility impacts people's daily lives, why representation matters, and how educators and healthcare workers can create more inclusive environments. To begin, I wanted to share a little bit about myself and my positionality. I work a few jobs, but I am currently a preschool teacher, a nursing assistant at a skilled nursing home, an ASU support network tutor, and I have a lot of experience learning American Sign Language, or ASL. In the future, I hope to work in healthcare and educational related environments, so understanding communication differences and accessibility is very important to me. I am a health science major, but I'm also an education minor as I hope to one day teach students in college settings about anatomy, physiology, and pathophysiology. So, learning about accessibility in education is extremely important to me. I also recognize that I am a hearing individual learning about deaf culture from an outside perspective. And because of that, I think it's important to approach this topic with humility, openness, and a willingness to continue learning from deaf individuals and communities themselves. My experiences in education and ASL have shown me how communication barriers can impact confidence, learning, relationships, and access to opportunities. It has also shown me how powerful inclusion can be when people feel understood and supported. For my cultural autobiography connection, this project strongly connects to that because communication and connection are values that are both very important to me. Through my experiences working with diverse learners, I've seen that every student learns differently and communicates differently. Some students need visual supports, some need extra processing time, and others may use alternative forms of communication. I also recognize my privilege as a hearing person because many environments are naturally designed for hearing individuals. Deaf and hard of hearing people often have to advocate for accommodations that hearing individuals may never even have to think about. A good example of this is Arizona State University's SAILS student accessibility and inclusive learning services, where students can get paperwork and documents to and it helps them advocate for their learning, and that way then they can have, for an example, a longer time on tests if there is a reason for that. And I think that's really important and a great step in the right direction for accessibility purposes. This project helped me reflect on how important it is to intentionally create inclusive environments rather than assuming everyone has equal access automatically. Inclusion requires effort, awareness, and advocacy. My project specifically focuses on deaf and hard of hearing inclusion. There are many areas where accessibility barriers still exist, especially in health, education, healthcare, and public spaces. Communication barriers can make it harder for individuals to fully participate in conversations, learning environments, or even healthcare appointments. Representation is another important issue because people deserve to see themselves represented positively in media, education, and leadership roles. This topic also connects to equity and equal opportunity. Equality means giving everyone the same thing, but equity means understanding that different people may need different supports in order to truly succeed and participate fully. Why I chose this topic. I chose this topic because I have a personal connection to it through my ASL experience and my work in education. Learning ASL introduced me to deaf culture and helped me realize that deafness is not simply a disability for many individuals, but also a cultural identity and community. I also feel passionate about inclusive education because every student deserves to feel seen, respected, and supported in the classroom. Since I hope to work in healthcare in the future as well, understanding accessibility and communication differences will help me provide better care and advocate for patients more effectively. Overall, I chose this topic because I want to continue learning how to better support deaf and hard of hearing individuals both professionally and personally. One important concept connected to this topic is intersectionality. Intersectionality means that people can experience overlapping identities and systems that affect their experiences in society. For deaf and hard of hearing individuals, communication access is one major factor. Some individuals use ASL, while others use spoken communication, hearing aids, cochlear implants, lip reading, or multiple communication methods. Deaf culture itself is also considered a cultural identity by many people. Socioeconomic status can also affect access to resources like interpreters, specialized education, hearing technology, or healthcare services. Education and healthcare accessibility are deeply connected to these issues because communication barriers can directly impact learning outcomes, health outcomes, and opportunities. My first resource that I use is Arizona Hands and Voices, which is a nonprofit organization that supports families with deaf and hard of hearing children. This organization is especially valuable because it is parent driven and focuses on supporting families regardless of which communication methods they choose. One thing I really appreciated about this resource is that it reflects real lived experiences from families and emphasizes inclusion and support. This resource also connects to intersectionality because it addresses disabilities, family roles, education, and communication access all at once. As a future educator and healthcare worker, I can use information from this organization to better collaborate with families and support different communication styles rather than assuming one approach works for everyone. My second resource is the Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, also called ACDHH. This is a government organization that provides advocacy, accessibility programs, and support services for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. I chose this resource because it demonstrates real world solutions to accessibility barriers. For example, they provide services for deaf blind individuals and work to improve communication access across Arizona. This resource also highlights how socioeconomic factors can impact accessibility because not everyone has equal access to support services, interpreters, or technology. In my future career, I could use organizations like ACDHH to help connect families and individuals with resources and accommodations that improve accessibility and quality of life. My third resources focuses on Nal DeMarco and deaf representation in media. Nal DeMarco is a deaf actor, model, and advocate who has spoken publicly about the importance of representation and accessibility. One major point from this resource is that representation impacts identity, confidence, and belonging. When people see individuals like themselves represented positively in media and society, it can help them feel valued and included. This resource also provides an authentic perspective directly from a deaf individual rather than only discussing deafness from an outside perspective. For me personally, I really enjoyed getting to watch Nal DeMarco's videos because as someone that is outside and trying to learn the deaf culture from that type of perspective, it is really important to see how this a deaf person represents themselves in a conversation and also hearing how they advocate for themselves, and that learning from someone else talking about it is just such a great way to better understand and have those resources so I know for the future in my back pocket that this is how I can handle a situation or how I can improve accessibility or how I can manage and break down those barriers for a patient of mine or for a student of mine or give those resources out to parents, families, other physicians so they can be aware of this as well. And then in education, representation matters because students benefit from seeing diverse identities and experiences reflected positively in classrooms, books, media, and leadership roles. For this slide, I've broken it up into 3 sections: my big takeaways, what I learned, and my application to my future career. So, first, for my big takeaways, one of the biggest takeaways from this project is that inclusion goes far beyond physical access. True inclusion includes communication, access, representation, and understanding. Another major takeaway is that representation shapes identity, and when people feel represented and included, it can positively impact confidence and belonging. I also learned that advocacy creates meaningful change. Accessibility improvements often happen because individuals and communities speak up about barriers and work towards solutions together. Throughout this project, I learned that deaf culture is a rich cultural identity and community, not simply a medical condition or disability. I also learned that accessibility must be intentional. Inclusive environments do not just happen automatically. They require planning, awareness, and effort. Even small changes can improve inclusion, such as using visual supports, captions, clear communication, and inclusive teaching strategies. Most importantly, I learned that increasing awareness can lead to better support, stronger relationships, and more equitable opportunities. This topic directly applies to my future career goals in education and healthcare. As an educator, I want to use inclusive communication strategies and adapt lessons for diverse learners. As a future healthcare professional, I want to advocate for accessibility and ensure patients feel heard, respected, and understood at all times. Communication is essential in both education and healthcare, so understanding accessibility needs can improve outcomes and relationships. For an example, in healthcare, making sure that your patient is fully aware and getting that full communication from their doctor is extremely important, because if a patient is confused about a procedure, a medication, it can lead to some very serious consequences. So making sure that your patient is fully aware of every step in the process is so important. And same thing for students. If a student is not learning correctly and you don't, as a teacher, an educator, you don't get to learn that this student has been struggling for months, then that student is going to be struggling unheard for for just a very, very long time, and really when they needed that support and they didn't get it. So making sure that that communication goes both ways is so important. I also want to continue supporting students and families by creating environments where everyone feels valued and included. For this section, I also broke it up into my 3 sections, where I broke it up as real-world connections, action steps, and my final reflection. So for my real-world connection, I spoke with a preschool teacher named Gina Redendo, who was also my mom, about inclusion in early education. She explained to me that students are often taught from a young age how to include others, show kindness, and understand differences. This conversation with her really stood out to me because it showed that inclusion starts very early in education. Young children are capable of learning empathy, respect, and acceptance when those values are modeled consistently. This also reinforced that idea that in creating inclusive environments benefits everyone, not just individuals with disabilities or communication differences. These students are going to be able to go into the world having that understanding of how to be kind, empathetic, and just capable of that respect and acceptance in every aspect of their lives, which is so important in this day and age. For my action steps, I want to continue taking moving forward is continuing to learn and practice ASL so I can improve my communication skills and in educational settings. Second, I want to promote deaf awareness in classrooms. I also want to use more visual and accessible teaching methods because accessibility often benefits all learners, not just deaf and hard of hearing students. And finally, I want to continue supporting inclusive policies and advocating for equal access. To conclude this project, it overall helped me better understand the importance of deaf and hard of hearing inclusion and accessibility. Inclusion creates more equitable environments where individuals feel respected, supported, and valued. Everyone deserves equal access to communication, education, healthcare, and opportunities. Overall, this project really reminded me that awareness and advocacy can create meaningful change, and that inclusion begins with intentional actions and understanding. For my final slide, I included my complete resource list with all the resources used throughout my project. These resources really helped me understand deaf culture, accessibility, communication barriers, representation, and inclusion. I hope you all can use these resources to better understand inclusive resources for communication and accessibility in education. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you all have a wonderful day.